Hey everyone, welcome to the Worship Artistry Podcast. My name is Jason Houtsma, and with me...
It's Kristina Kaslanka.
yes, it is. And we are back. We have survived Easter.
We did.
We have both survived Easter, and it was pretty great. How was your Easter?
It went super well. It was exciting, and,
Define exciting. Tell me what's exciting about leading
There was
worship
more
Easter.
people on a Sunday than there has been in a while. And all of them were people that have, they're members of the church that just don't come as often as others, or they just take turns and, not coming on a Sunday or something. So it was really cool to see a full house.
Yeah. I talked last time about how we actually combined gatherings with another church. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really fun to not have to lead. Mm-hmm. To be a support role rather than be the leader. That's actually really fun.
It's so nice to do that occasionally.
Right. And it's really nice to be a supporter that really has something to offer.
Yeah.
So we got there, and so I was leading worship with Janet, and so I had a couple songs that I was going to sing, but she also kind of looked to me to help with the band a little bit, and I know how to do that. That's something I'm very confident in.
Yeah.
And so it was just great to be able to meet some other players, I got to play with a great drummer, bass player, good guys. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was just really fun. I felt like I got to step back and enjoy it in just a different way. I really enjoyed leading worship, but it was a different way because of not having all the responsibility. And then really we were very different kinds of churches. They're denominationally whatever, but it's more just most of the folks in their church are elderly. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of young families, and it definitely created an exciting environment. As their pastor said, he's like, oh, we were the Presbyterian churches. We grew up, it was like, you stay still, you're the frozen chosen. And everyone thought that was the funniest joke ever. I was like, have we not heard that one before? Okay. All right, I see what kind of crowd we got here. And then he said, and then Mosaic, they have more of a free-range parenting style. I was like, that's a really good description. But everyone was engaged. Yeah. And at the end of the gathering, we took communion, and we flowered the cross. Every year we do this where everyone just goes and picks up flowers and puts it on the cross.
Really
it's
cool.
Really beautiful. You end up with this, it goes from this chicken wire, terrible looking thing to this really beautiful thing.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it took a long time to do, and it was just really beautiful seeing all these generations and all very different backgrounds, everybody coming up and doing it together. I mean, serving each other communion. There was volunteers from from both churches, really involved
coming
with
together.
Things. It was really powerful.
That's really cool.
It was there was a couple times I was like, is somebody, my allergies are flaring up just a little bit.
Really kicking in this morning.
I didn't know that I had those allergies things. So it was really powerful. And it was really fun. It was also really interesting to work in a different environment, because last time I was about to go to practice. I think it was last time I was talking about it. And we are part of Worship Artistry. That's who we are, and we build these tools for churches exactly like this.
Yeah.
So Janet's telling me some of the issues that they're having, and that I have this guitar player, but he only knows a couple chords, and it'd be really great if he could learn a few more things. And I'm like, our website does that. I can hook you up. This could be good. And she's like, oh yeah, sure. And then, she's printing out 5 different
she
charts.
Doesn't recognize the solution you're giving her.
Right. And you realize though that one of the things that worship leaders do is we kind of get in our sense of, this is what works. This is what I do. This is how I do it. And change is a little bit painful.
Yep.
But if you've been leading worship the same way for 20 years, there are a lot of things out there that can help you.
Yeah.
I mean, she was printing out, she was going on Song Select. She's printing out 5 different pieces of paper with different keys on them, just because she was like, should we do it in A or should we do it in E? And we're all getting these charts. And I'm like, do you have OnSong? Do you know what OnSong is? No, I don't know. You can just import from Song Select and change everything on the fly on an iPad. You can buy an iPad for $100 now on eBay or something. And it's just, I remember making that transition and that being difficult, but then once I made the it's way easier now. But once I made the transition, it was how did I ever do this any other way? Yeah,
I remember when I took over leading worship, I would have to do songs in a different key oftentimes because our worship pastor before was a male. So all the keys that he did, I could no longer lead in those keys. So when I started leading, I would bring in, the song that we'd have been doing for years in a different key. And the whole, like, all the vocalists would look at me and they're like, but we can't sing the same parts anymore. And I'm like, yes, you're going to have to change what you sing. And it was so foreign because we'd been doing like the same song in the same key for all those years, and everyone knew the part in their head and how they needed to sing. And all of a sudden they had to change. And it was so like, it threw them off, and it was so funny. And the same thing with, instead of like weekly, instead of sending them YouTube links for all the songs, I would, you know, in Planning Center, I would just have all the links there and everything would live there. And so weekly, when I'd like text the team and be like, hey, like the set list is up, go review it, they would be waiting for me to send them the YouTube links. And they're like, are you going to send the links? I'm like, oh no, you can go and find them on your own if you want to. They're all available at all times, but I won't be doing that anymore. And that was also like, but it was so nice having it at my fingertips. I'm like, it's still at your fingertips, just in a different location.
In a different way. Yep.
Yeah. And so it took a little bit, but there's always those things that, like, stepping in, you just have to kind of challenge the way things that have been done, the way they have been done, and just like try to do something new. Like,
and it turns out usually it's better.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's funny, when we updated our website, I remember there were people like, it was fine the way it was. And it was like, no, it's not. No, it wasn't. Like, mobile phones like were barely a thing when we started.
Yeah.
So like we mobilized the whole thing. We like it, and you know, you get used to it. But you always have to be willing to, I think having the buy-in that like we're doing this and not kind of second guessing, but like, okay, this is how we're going to go about doing it.
Yeah.
Makes all the difference in the world, because then it's just like, no, I mean, when Apple was like, yeah, we're not going to do a headphone port anymore, it was like,
everyone freaked out.
Yeah, what do you mean? Now I can't use my headphones. And it's like, okay, you got to spend a little more for Bluetooth headphones. But would you ever go back to wanting wired headphones?
Never.
No. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting, the things that you get kind of stuck in. And then if you're willing to kind of do that little bit of extra work, it makes all the difference.
Yep.
Well, I was actually really excited to do a little extra work with Tiffany Hudson from Elevation this week. I've interviewed a few people from Elevation before. I was actually really excited to interview Tiffany because a number of her songs that she leads on are some of the favorite ones that we've done. Yeah.
I mean, I was so excited for you to interview her.
I offered you the opportunity.
I know. No, you do better anyways.
And then you said no. All right. You really believed that statement, so I didn't push too hard. But she was fantastic. I think, you know, it's always interesting interviewing artists. It's like, are you going to get something that speaks specifically to worship leaders in their own environment? And I think she talks about vocal performance. She talks about kind of how she got to where she is, like the things that she did as a volunteer that made it so that she was elevated into all these other things.
Elevated.
You like that one?
Yeah,
that was right there.
Wow.
That just came to me. I'm going to end on that, and let's just go right into, ladies and gentlemen, Tiffany Hudson. Tiffany, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. So happy to be here.
Well, I've been listening to the new Elevation record. Also excited to dive more into the Elevation Rhythm record as well. So you're just you're all over the place. You're everywhere.
All over.
And we've taught a number of your songs. One of my favorite ones that you did was Never Lost.
Awesome.
That is just a beautiful, beautiful song. I love it. And you know, I just wanted to learn a little bit about you as a musician. Because there's such a diversity of genres throughout these records. Like, it's crazy to think that you're on both of them. But I wanted to learn a little bit about you as a musician. You know, we talk a lot about inspiration and kind of what brings us joy when we play music. And so I'd love to know from you, just when did you first get bit by the music bug? And how did that, and now you're leading for Elevation, you're on all these records. Maybe tell me a little bit about that first moment, and then, as best you can, how you've gotten here.
I will give you my story in a nutshell. Honestly, I would say it started when I was a young girl. I always loved singing. I always wanted to write music, even though I was no good at it at all. But honestly, I grew up in my dad's church. My parents are pastors. And if you know anything about that life, a lot of times you are just first there, last to leave, and kind of filling whatever needs to be filled. So, you know, the nursery worker doesn't show up and I'm the girl that has to go take care of the babies. Or for this example, we didn't have a worship team at my dad's church. And so I kind of knew how to sing, kind of knew how to play keys. So I ended up just filling that hole. And through that process, though, I was totally just like broken for what worship is and what the presence of God is. And I would say it started just in my parents' small church in Pennsylvania, where I really like fell in love with leading worship and music and what those times of worship were. And so, yeah. And then long story short, went to college, didn't study worship or music, but just studied ministry because I knew I just wanted to be part of a local church, and basically just needed an internship to graduate with my major. Found out about Elevation through their internship. So I came to Elevation to do an internship for a summer, and little did I know God would have me be planted here, and just fell in love with the vision and the mission of the church. So now I get the honor to be here and to get to continue to learn under this leadership and serve here. So, yeah.
So what's it like? So going from a small church, you're saying like being in a small church in Pennsylvania, we get at this idea of kind of like what church is. And then I look at Elevation and I'm like, I don't even recognize that from the world that I live in. Like, was it intimidating to be in that environment, or did you feel at home right away? What was that like?
I would definitely say there's parts of it that can be intimidating, but I've tried so hard to keep like that local church mindset, because we do have 20 locations, which a lot of people don't know. So my first 3 years here, I was serving at one of our locations as the worship leader. And it did feel kind of like a little church plant. Like, it was gritty. It was building the church from the ground up, serving our city, serving our community. And so that was my first experience of Elevation before ever, getting to sing at, the main location or being a part of the projects or anything like that. So there are different variations of what Elevation is. Like, what people see online is definitely a big part of our church, but what a lot of people don't see is like the other campuses that are just, growing and like learning how to do that. So yeah.
It's anybody who's been in the church planting world where you're like, kind of scrappy going for it. We're all like, yep. Uh-huh.
We're all in this together. Yep.
It's like, okay, I'm in the same spot in my own church. It's still a scrap. Still feels like a scrappy church plant. I mean, we've been going for 15 years. I'm still setting up the whole sound system every week and tearing it down and trying to work the sound and the stuff. It's just crazy.
I love.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit. So I've noticed that for the most part, let me ask you, do you play an instrument, or are you mostly a vocalist?
I will say I'm mostly a vocalist, but I can hold it down on keys if I have to. Play barely any guitar to even say that. So yeah.
So what is it like? So a lot of people when they're leading worship, especially because once again, small church, a lot of times don't have a lot of musicians, are pulling double duty. Like I think I have one time when I had shoulder surgery, I led worship without my guitar in my hands, and it was the weirdest feeling in all the world.
Yeah.
What are some of the blessings as well as the challenges of having a mic in your hand?
Yeah.
And that being and leading the band and the congregation and all that. What is that like?
I mean, honestly, for me, it's like a comfortability thing. I feel so much more comfortable without an instrument because my mind is fully able to focus on leading worship. I'm not thinking about the chords. I'm not making sure I'm like staying on the click necessarily. So for me, it's very freeing. One of the blessings I would say is like you can move around, you can jump, you can dance, and nothing's obstructing you. So that's a blessing of it. I would say there is helpful knowledge, though, to know the chords and to know the progressions to be able to lead the band, because I never want to be a vocalist that's like, can you play that one chord that sounds like, like at the bridge? Like, I want to kind of know what I'm talking about. So I guess that helps if you play an instrument, that you're really in tune with where the band's going dynamically, and you're not just out there just trying to lead them when you don't know what's happening. So,
well, you can always speak in can you give me a little more of that boom got, got, and some of the
drummer talk?
ding.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that.
So I wanted to ask you about a little bit about stage presence, because you're talking about being able to dance and move. Is that something that's natural for you, or is that something that you had to be intentional about developing? Because I think, I think a lot of times we picture on our heads what we look like when we're playing on stage, and then or on the platform, and then if we look at a video of it, we're really just like locked down and staring at like looking somewhat terrified.
Yeah.
But the more expressive we are, the more we pull people in. Is that something that was natural for you, or is that something that you had to develop?
I would definitely say it's something I've developed over the years. Like, I think anybody's first time on a stage, you just feel awkward and you're very aware of every movement that you do. Everything you do with your hands, you're just like extra aware of. But I'm thankful that the Lord has allowed me to really just kind of forget about those things and just be fully free. Because I think as worship leaders, like, we really do set the stage and set the standard for, if we're free, it allows other people to be free. And if we're timid, then maybe other people don't feel like they can express themselves in worship. So I would say it's something I've grown into for sure. And honestly, a lot that the Lord's taught me in my own just like private worship, to have that freedom there, so that when you're on a stage, it doesn't feel like it's not you. It's like you've kind of developed that off the platform, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So I want to talk about this record. So, but when you listen to this record, it is very diverse.
Yes.
And it's interesting because a lot of times I think people think of worship as a genre, which I'm always like, worship is not a genre. Worship is just a thing that you do, and then there's genres within it, right? However, I think a lot of people think about like, this is the genre. You know, it's going to be about this tempo. It's going to be 72 beats per minute. There's going to be a guitar with doing little delay things. Right. There's going to be a bunch of pads, and that is what worship is. Your record is, like I said, is very diverse. Just even going through the songs that you sing on, like Dancing is kind of an R&B pop kind of a feel. Who You Really Are has this, like, it reminds me of playing for a gospel choir, like I used to do, just kind of that repetition and kind of flowing through that. And then like It Might Get Loud is like a Southern rock anthem. Yeah. Like, it's just like, okay, I think this is very different. Right. How did you decide how you were going to approach these songs?
Well, as in like the album as a whole, like together?
Like just kind of each song. So like, you're looking at Dancing.
Yeah.
Did it kind of was it already kind of like, yeah, this is in this style and it's just naturally, we naturally go with that? Or was there kind of like here's the lyrics, here's the melody, we want to kind of work with this, how do we make this be the most that it can be?
It's interesting because whenever we get into writing sessions, we're never starting with the lens of like, let's write this type of song. We just kind of follow the feeling and what does this melody feel like? Let's just chase it and see what happens. And so this record is 100% diverse, and you would never think these songs belong together on one project. But it was really cool to watch the process of a song like Dancing that doesn't necessarily feel like a corporate worship song, to like go next to like This Is the Kingdom, which is a beautiful corporate scripture, worship song. And seeing them kind of like serve their own purpose is really sweet. And honestly, just to add, like that was a confusing part in this album process of like, do these all fit together? But whenever the concept of kind of like the lion and the lamb came together, those are two polar opposites. But it's like the paradox of God. He is the lion and the lamb. And so maybe this album could express different facets of God's character. Like maybe it can be loud and rowdy, like Might Get Loud, and then maybe it can be really sweet, like, name whatever other song on there. So
yeah, it's what are some of your favorite moments on it? Because I think every musician, if you've ever made a record, any project that you make, you always kind of have these like, oh, you hear that, right? That one cymbal crash, like right there. That's like my favorite moment. Or when the bass drops in on this. What are some of your kind of highlight moments on the record?
Well, okay, let me think. There's a lot of moments I love, but I think No One took me by surprise. It's so different than any song we've ever done, and just the way that the band all had so much fun playing it with the little piano intro, like dun 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 dun. It's almost like Under the Sea vibes. Like it's just like really fun. And so anytime we play that, we always just have fun with it. And so you can just see everybody's joyful and smiling. So that, I would say, there's the flow that Pat Barrett has in This Is the Kingdom. always hits me. Like it's always just so beautiful. Um, one of the final choruses of Lion just feels like there's like a chord change that I just love and it just hits so good. So I would say that.
That's awesome. Do you, are you surprised by the songs that the church grabs? You know, it's like worship artistry. We really focus on the congregational aspect, but you know, as a worship leader, I'm always looking for worship that I can listen to in my daily life that isn't meant. You know, it's like I work on congregational music all week. You know,
Right.
what are the songs that are going to minister to me when I'm just trying to like quiet my heart, and how do I,
Right.
you know, kind of like spend time with God and have these songs. And I think that's what's really cool about kind of having those different songs. Do you look at certain songs as, you know, this one is a, you know, man, this one feels like a devotional song. This one feels like a, you know, belted out in the car song. This one's the congregational one. This is the one everybody grabs. Like, do you kind of have ideas about that as you put these out? Do you have purpose for that?
I would say yes, there are like specific purposes for each song. Like I mentioned, we're probably not going to do dancing on a Sunday morning like as like a worship song just because it doesn't feel like that, but then other people could connect with that song in a different type of way. It's like story like a relationship with God like that. But I would say, yeah, for sure, each song serves its own purpose. But I will say I've been wrong about what that purpose could serve. A lot of times I can box in of what I think a worship song is, like you were mentioning. Like it has to like build this big bridge, you know, just to be like a good corporate worship song. And I think the more I've even been in this context, the more that that box has been broken of what a worship song could sound like.
Mm-hmm.
Even like Rattle, like I never would have thought people would have engaged with a song like that, but then to see our church worship to it is pretty cool. So I will say yes, they do serve specific purposes in my mind, but I'm usually surprised by how some of them continue to do that too.
So, you know, it's funny. We've been, you know, tracking just to help us find songs, which ones we should be doing. We're always tracking what songs are what people are searching, and okay, we got a lot of search. One of our most searched songs last month was "Available" off of the Graves in the Gardens. Which, you know, we did all the big songs right off that, but that one it's like it just creeps up, and it's funny because we only have so much time to listen to everything, right? And so you kind of for on our end, we're going like, okay, which ones are connecting? Let's grab those and make sure we sure we believe the words and make sure we think it's theologically accurate. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
But then these other songs kind of, you know, swell up, and like a song like "Available," like we didn't catch that the first time around, and now I'm just like, why not? This song is amazing. What goes into choosing what comes out, and are there songs that kind of surprise you later?
100%. I feel like I'm usually wrong about which songs I guess go bigger. Just because in the writing room you never know what God's gonna do with a song. Like sometimes it's like, oh, I hope people even like this, and then to see people really respond well to it, it's always surprising to me. I don't think I'll ever like be able to pin like I know this song's gonna work. Um, but yeah, I guess there are some songs though where it's like the first time you do them, the room is just so responsive, and then other songs it might take a few times, but at the end of the day, it does really connect with people, but just took a little longer to get there.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about like your vocal style, because it's interesting. So I was telling you how, you know, "Never Lost" is one of my favorite songs that we've done. It's just different. Your vocal performance on it is outstanding. And, you know, I've heard other people sing it, and they sing the notes really well. You know, they're on pitch and everything, but they don't necessarily bring that extra feeling, that extra expression into it that I feel like really captures you as you listen to a song.
Yeah.
Are you thoughtful about that? Is that something that's kind of developed, and do you kind of, how does your vocal process work when you're actually going to, I know people like shy away from the word performing, but I'm going to say when you perform a song, you know, what's kind of your process in like, okay, I'm learning the song, I'm owning the song, and then I'm really like performing the song. How does that work for you as a vocalist?
Absolutely. Well, I think I really tried to sit with the song for a while before I sing it. You know, if we're afforded that opportunity and it's not like a brand new one that we just try. So even like a song like Available, I sat with for months so that I really like meant those words. And
Hmm.
so I think I was able to like sing it from a heart place. Even like Never Lost, like I felt like that song is so out of my, I guess, wheelhouse vocally. Like I was so intimidated to try to sing it, but being a part of writing that song like really feel like helped give me like more of that like conviction to sing it, and
Hmm.
the process of what we were writing about and talking about when we wrote it. So I would say, yeah, just the more I can get in my heart and my spirit, the more the vocal performance is just I I mean, I think you can tell when people mean what they say.
Hmm.
And so I really have a conviction of like I better mean this before I sing it. And so whatever song it is, whatever style it is, even if it's like in my eyes not, out of my wheelhouse of like what I'm able to do vocally, if I mean it, I know I can sing it like the best that I possibly can just because I have that conviction.
Is there a moment that it clicks for you, or is there kind of like oh, there it is. Like now I'm feeling, because I think a lot of worship musicians don't ever get to have that opportunity. Like they never make it to that point. There's kind of this natural, we talk about this all the time on worship artistry. I call it like the light bulb moment, where you get outside of like, I'm learning this song for the
Yes.
purpose of learning it, versus now I own this song, and
Yeah.
and I can express my heart through it. Is there a moment for you where it just kind of clicks and you're like, okay, that like I've got it, and then what does that feel like?
Oh man. Well, our pastor has said here that true worship is self-forgetfulness. So in a way, when it clicks for me is when I'm not thinking about, am I hitting this? Am I singing this right? Does this feel like it just gets past that point of like, even like the way I'm performing or the way I'm singing it, I just feel like so confident in what I'm saying that it like gets past the point of me. I
Hmm.
guess that's when it feels like it clicks. But I don't know. I feel like just also worshiping on my own, like with certain songs, it's like there's moments where like you're, trying to think of how to say this right. I feel like when that song will inspire your own song, that also tells me like, oh, it's in me like more.
Hmm.
Like I have, I don't have to be glued to the lyrics to know him. Like I have so many other thoughts to it and so many other songs that have
Hmm.
come from it. That's when I feel like it clicks for me.
Yeah. How long on average do you think that takes? Like just to give people like a sense of what that is. Cause I think, it's like, okay, I worked on this for like an hour,
Right,
like,
right.
what does that mean for you? What is like on average? I know it's probably different for everything.
I know it's so hard to say, but I would say if you're given the honor and the privilege to be able to lead your congregation in a song of worship, like I would say daily it's something you should be worshiping to, or this,
Hmm.
the song that you're doing is like make sure it's in your spirit. So I would say like, there we've had times where also it's like it's a brand new song. I haven't had a week to sit with the song. It's more of
Hmm.
like just do it. So I'm not saying that that's every time, but for me, ideally, I'd love like 2 weeks before to like sit in the song every day. I'm listening to it every day. Even if you play an instrument, play it on your own to really like get into the feel of it. I think that helps me to have like a week with the song.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Do you, as a vocalist, kind of going back to that idea, what do you want the band to know? Like as you're kind of working with other musicians, is there anything that you're like, oh man, this is a really helpful to a vocalist, or man, I've really learned how to work with a band in this way, and that this really works. Is there anything that's any been kind of light bulb moments for you in terms of having a strong
Really
relationship that way?
such a good question, and I would say I'm definitely still learning when
Hmm.
it comes to all that. But I think when you feel like your team trusts you and supports you, like I feel like I can do anything when I can look back at my keys player and he's smiling. Like
Hmm.
even saying in like in an MD mic, like go for it. We trust you. You got this. Like giving me that trust makes me feel like I can lead. So it is
Hmm.
a little bit both ways of like, yeah, you kind of earn trust, but also when it's given, it makes you feel like it makes you just feel like supported. And
Hmm.
so Also, I think I've just had to learn what my leadership voice could look like in a band setting because I don't consider myself a musician. So I'm not going to be up there telling them what drum part to play. But I know how things feel. And so I could say things like, I love what you did. I would love to feel a little bit more supported in this part. And they know what that means without me like pretending to know it all or, you know, try to steal away from their genius. It's more of like, let's see how we can support each other, what I need in this moment and then what you need in this moment.
Yeah, that's really thoughtful. What do you? Let me ask you this. So you had said how you kind of you came from one of the church plants, you hustled there, like now you're kind of you're doing records, right? Talking about earning trust. What are some ways in which do you think that you've been able to earn the trust of the people around you to go like, oh man, here are qualities that Tiffany has that makes it, because it's not just a great voice, right? Like there's so much more that goes into being a great worship leader. So
Absolutely.
what are some of the things that you think, and you don't have to like toot your horn here or anything, but like, what are some of the things that you recognize like, oh, this was helpful for me to do. This kind of opened some doors for me. What were some of the, even like heart attitude? What were things that you saw that kind of got you here?
Well, two things come to mind off the bat. Something I've learned is like, I would say you build trust by like stewarding what you're given well. So like, for example, the first time I'm given a song, I'm going to honor what they gave me. I'm not going to overstep. I'm not going to take a 9-minute flow moment. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
you kind of honor what you're given and try to steward it as best as you can. Like be caught. I guess every environment's different, but here it's like we sync up with 20 other campuses. And so I'm going to honor the time that I'm given. I'm not going to like just do my own thing when I feel it. Like especially in the beginning, it's like you want to earn that you're like dependable. And I would say too is like you're consistent even in your mood and emotion and all that, like showing up and people kind of know what to expect from you. Not like one day you're really, really, negative. And then the next day you come and you're bubbly and happy. Not that we can't have bad days. We all do, but having that consistency of like, people can trust you when you show up and every time you have a good attitude and every time you're showing up on time and you're honoring what you're given and not overstepping, the bounds that you've been given.
That is a great answer. That's
Lots to
excellent.
tell, but
No, it's so true. So we'll kind of close with this. Here's a question I always love to ask artists, musicians. What is inspiring you right now? What are things that are kind of sparking your creativity? Because I think a lot of times, when we get kind of burnt out and we get tired, it's because we're not taking in things that get us jacked up, like
absolutely.
So like what artists, what music, what's inspiring you right now?
Well, the first thing that came to mind, which I know is lame, but I have a garden and that inspires me. That's not music, that's not artist, but that inspires me so much. Every day I'm out there, weeding and watering and all those things. So doing something that feels a different side of your creativity, which I know that doesn't sound like a creative thing to do, but it's something you're like working on and daily like giving to. So I think that something like that is really inspiring to me. When it comes to like artists or music, I mean I'm a worship girl at heart, and so any worship that comes out I'm listening to. And then I love pop music too, so I feel like just a blend of pop and worship usually gets me inspired. And sorry, that's a bit of a vague answer.
Well, okay. What worship music are you listening to right now? Who are you liking?
Right now, I love Upper Room so much. So I think I'm listening to them majority. I know a few friends just came out with like a solo record that I've been listening to. But yeah, I would say
you can drop their name. Go ahead, give them some love.
Yeah. I've been listening. Well, Amanda is coming out with the album, so I got to hear some of that. I love Stephanie. I will always just love her. And Christine's new album, Christine DeMarco, is so reflective.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Asking a lot of the hard questions, not shying away from stuff. So like that kind of writing is very inspiring to me as well.
Yeah, it's called The Field, right?
Yeah.
It is one of our. It was funny. We work in this office, and we're always like sharing music with each other, And so Kristina, my co-host on the podcast, was like, "You're gonna like this album." Like, and just this has you written all over it. Yeah. And I put it in, and I've just been sitting with it. It's just, it's so questioning, but also affirming. It's like, okay, I'm not the only one. All right, okay,
So true. It's very needed, and I'm thankful. I actually don't know her, but I'm very thankful for what she's like been stewarding for so long, and then to release that is just like so beautiful.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'm also really enjoying listening to your record. So, like I said, it's an amazing like combination, but it still all feels like it fits. It still feels like it comes from the same place. I think it's a really challenging thing to do, and I think you guys have done it really well. And I love that the title is Lion and the photo on the front is a lamb. That was so grabbing to me. Like, I don't know. Worship album covers, who knows, but that was just like, that's something. That's going to make me pause for a second. It's really powerful. So, really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Just such great stuff about. I know our vocalists are going to love it, but I think there's a lot of feedback for all of us. And I think the more that we work together, and the more we kind of learn from each other and learn how we get to where we are, I think is really important. So, thank you for blessing us with your gifts, and let's go back to listening to some more music.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was a lovely interview.
I know. I enjoyed it.
I was so excited for you to interview her because she's a part of a different group called Elevation Rhythm.
Yes, she is. And actually, right after that call, I interviewed Elevation Rhythm. Not her, because that would have been weird. Like, oh, welcome back, Tiffany.
She would just change hats.
Yes, exactly. No, I interviewed Josh and David, and it was one of the most fun interviews I've ever done. Like that, like I couldn't stop smiling. I was enjoying it so much. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. It's a very different style of music.
Very youth oriented.
I feel a little old for it. But it was really cool to get their perspective on it, and it just really like inspired me to listen to it. So that's coming later this season, and our camera's about to die. So, if you would like to check out Worship Artistry and learn a few songs for free for 21 days, you can always do that. And that's kind of one of those tools that can be a life-changing tool for you. If you commit to it, it will make your life so much easier. And I actually do think I've got Janet on board. She was like, all right, I'm ready. Let me take a look at this.
Amazing.
So I'm going to sit with her. I highly recommend you check it out. You can check it out 21 days free. And if you don't want to do that, you can always head over to iTunes and give us a review. That is always helpful. I know there's so much more of you that listen than that give reviews. I'm not calling you out, but if just like one review a day, if you could just give one review a day.
Just give us that 5 stars.
Just give us that 5 stars. You don't even have to say anything. But we'd love it if you would do that. And otherwise, Kristina, I'll see you next time.